Representative Kinner.
Here.
Representative Larson. Representative Schwartz. Representative Simpson.
Here.
Representative Stith.
Here.
Representative Walters. Chairman is here.
Mr. Chairman, I actually didn't receive any emails in between this morning and now. I didn't receive any emails between this morning and now of what you had planned to take.
Okay, well, let's just walk through it then.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have the one Yin, Representative Yin marked up for you. That's what I
I
have.
have that one as well as the one I have marked up. So someone, do we have a scrivener who's gonna stay up to speed with what we're doing? Because
Mr. Chairman, I will keep notes of
Okay.
what you would like to amend.
So on page 1, in the title, I have added providing an appropriation and creating an oversight committee as also part of what the bill does.
And where are you putting that?
That will be in the
At the end of line 5.
yeah, basically after limitations on line 4. So just insert providing an appropriation, semicolon, creating an oversight committee, colon, and providing for an effective date. Any questions on that? We'll get to the oversight committee as we get down a little further. Okay, page 2. In definitions, and I just put it as not Romanet 2, but because it makes more sense right there. So Romanet 2, as used in this act, oversight committee in parentheses, and we can call it something else because we've already got committee up above. So it could be oversight group or commission or something, so we don't mix those terms. Shall consist of the CFO of the Treasurer's Office, a designee from the State Auditor's Office and the Governor's Office, 2 House members and 1 Senate member. Now, if we want to put anyone, we could add to that someone who may be an expert in this field that may be useful. Or we could provide that the oversight group could then essentially bring in an expert to sit with the group, however we want to do it.
Did you say an auditor designee and a governor's designee? So you different than a governor's appointee, because that expert could come in through an appointee, I assume.
The answer is either way.
Okay.
If the governor wants to put an expert on there versus one of the staff members, I mean, that'd be nice, but he'd have to retain someone to do that.
Mr. Chairman, so I have CFO, auditor designee, governor designee, 1 senator, 1 representative.
2 representatives.
Oh, 2 representatives? Okay, and then, I think an expert just makes sense out of the committee. They can be in oversight, advisory, et cetera.
So let's just describe the purpose of this, because obviously this is going to be a process that's going to kick into high gear tomorrow, theoretically, or as soon as this bill is passed. And Patrick will have to go out and retain some type of, in fact, we need to make a note of that. So we need to make some provision in order to comply, either or not comply with our contracting guidelines on, to hire experts or someone, you don't want to have to go through the bidding process, basically, that's required when we expend so much funds. So Mike, just make a note of that we need to, for the purposes of getting this thing off the ground, that the treasurer's office does not have to comply with the regular contractual state requirements.
Mr. Chairman, you started the group with the CFO of the treasurer. Did you mean the CIO of the treasurer?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman, should we also designate that the treasurer CIO will be the chairman of this committee? Because otherwise we have to have somebody organizing. It's my first question. And my second question is, who is going to appoint an industry expert? Where does that come from?
That's the question is.
The others are pretty easy to figure out,
I
but
think so let me finish it. So then we have the financial institution. Now that's a different component. The answer is, let's discuss it. I mean, theoretically, this committee would do it at the recommendation of the CIO.
so then in that definition, that's back to my point, I think we should say the CIO is the chairman, so
Yeah.
somebody gets them together to get it kicked off, and
So
then
I'll
we would
just-
say
yeah, I'll just stick it-
industry expert as selected by this group.
So,
Well,
Mr. Chair,
what we can say is that the group may add an expert to the committee.
Could that be at the discretion of the chair, or which one, or which expert could be retained or brought on?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Mr. Chairman, so if the CIO is the chair, could it be an option for the chairman to bring on an additional expert at their discretion?
Right, essentially.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
just for clarification, is this expert now a voting member of the committee or just a consultant?
I would think a consultant, not a. Okay. Then I go down to the next paragraph. My modification here is financial institution means any entity approved by the oversight committee and the treasurer after consultation with the IFC. Okay, questions? Okay, going down the next page. I'm now on page 4. I think that's the next change. Or recommended change. So this is what the treasurer's duties are. And so what I'm inserting in Romanet I, under C, Romanet I. And I worded a couple different ways. I've got to pick and choose which one. The treasurer in consultation with the investment funds committee and the oversight committee. So I add the oversight committee there. And I do the same thing at on Romanet 2. The governor may, in consultation with the IFC and oversight, retain professional services.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
we go back to the page 2 on the definitions, on that financial institution definition, because the treasurer below is defined as the office of the treasurer. Then we also have the consultation of the IFC and other locations. Do we need it here? Because you added
Define.
the financial institution means any entity approved by the treasurer to act as a manager, and you added in this CIO and the IFC is the to have to be approved by that. Well, because the treasurer is defined as the office of the treasurer, that means the CIO could already be involved there. Do we need all the new language you put in on page 2 under financial institution? That's the question. Sorry to back up.
It's all right. I think we do.
Just making sure.
Mr. Chairman, do you need to plug a definition of IFC in here? Or are we good because we've got that? We obviously define it in other statute, but I
It
would.
doesn't hurt if we add that in.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, back to page 4, 5, that we're at. Go ahead.
So you've added language in Romanet I. And it almost seems like that would apply to Romanet 2 as well. Do you want to just restructure it so it's in consultation with
Except that.
with the treasurer and then go to the
Well, I
Romanet?
thought about that, but some of them don't apply, like shall, on the shall components.
Mhm.
So either we'd have to divide up the whole paragraphs or just do it each one.
Okay.
I'm sorry, guys, I'm bouncing back and forth from there. So I've got on Romanet 3. Shall maintain, invest, and reinvest the funds received by the Wyoming stable tokens and any earnings from these investments in accordance with investment policies recommended by the treasurer and approved by the IFC and oversight committee.
Meeting established. We will recommend.
Right. So what we're doing is adding in this concept, we're adding 2 or 3 levels of transparency. So everyone sees what's going on. And it's not Patrick behind the golden curtain pulling the levers and everyone else. So everyone knows what's going on. Or someone else besides Patrick. So then Romanet 4 after consultation with the IFC and oversight, may make and enter into any and all contracts, agreements, and arrangements. So what I perceive happening, and Patrick, tell me, when, because we're going to be in a hurry up mode for the next 2 or 3 months, we'll be able to, the IFC has been fairly adaptive about at least having a majority of them have a quick peek at it, run it through them, have a phone conference, Zoom, just so they're in the loop. And theoretically, they will then get more engrossed in this thing and do some of them will do a deep dive and help us really move this forward. I'm guessing. All right, let's go down to 5. That stays the same. 6, in consultation with the IFC and oversight after May. So number 7, I've changed it a little bit because what I perceive to be what will happen is in the first 3, well, let's just say the first 3 to 6 months, there's going to be a lot happening. And so what I have is shall, during the startup phase, report no less than monthly to the IFC and oversight regarding all actions taken to implement this act, period. And then after April of 2023, report no less than quarterly. April 1st, 2023, so after next session. By that time, we'll have issued our first tokens. We'll be running, we'll know if it's working or not, and we'll have maybe much as 3 or 4 or 5 months of transactions taking place. If it's everything's running on the rails and everything's going, then the oversight group can step back and we'll just let this thing go. And just with, sure. Shall, during the startup phase, report no less than monthly to the IFC and oversight regarding all actions taken to implement this act. Period. After April 1st, 2023, shall report no less than quarterly on all activities involving this act. March 31. It said April 1st. Doesn't matter. Okay, and then I want to create a new section which says prior to issuing the first token, the treasurer shall appear before Capital Finance Committee to provide a comprehensive report of all the actions taken and any other updates on implementation of the act. So what I'm looking at is what I want to do is make sure that let's say you have the ability to opt out, I think is October 31st. October 1st, November 1st. So yeah, same thing. So essentially it would be sometime before that date. You'll come and present before the Capital Finance Committee or Zoom meeting, wherever it is, and say, okay, this is what we've done from the time this bill passed. This is where we have, this is the managers we've retained. This is what the IFC and the committee has reviewed. And this is what we're going to do and when we're going to pull the trigger. And this is what we expect to happen. So that once again, everything's transparent. It's all out in front of us. And so that's what that paragraph does. Yeah, I just put it in as one of those, the last Romanette. Well, I kind of made it up as I was going, so you can kind of fill in the blanks, but I said that prior to issuing tokens, the treasurer shall appear before the Capital Finance Committee and provide a comprehensive update of all activities performed and an explanation of the launch and all, basically be all contracts that are into, who's been retained, all, everything that's had to do with it. And then explain the processes for going forward.
Mr. Chairman, so essentially, yeah, a comprehensive report on all actions taken under this act. Yeah, okay.
So
Well, the treasurer means the treasurer's office in the definitions. So obviously it will be Patrick who's doing it.
Would the reference there actually be the chair of the oversight committee rather than the,
Could be, yeah. Actually, that makes more sense.
yeah?
Why don't you make it the chair of the oversight? So also in the definitions, I thought it might be useful, either, I don't like the term notional value. Doesn't mean anything to me. And so I think we either need to define it or change it. And I think, so I'm asking you guys, because you know better, I think face value is a better, more understood terminology. Because one token, the face value is going to be $1, right? And that's what it is. Or we should either do that or on the notional value, put that in. Patrick, any comments on that?
bottom of page 6.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, Patrick Fleming, CIO for the Treasurer's Office. Yes, the notional value in investment parlance would be that $1. But to be clear on it, you could easily define that as the face value or something else. But in investment parlance, when you're talking about the notional value, that would be the notional value of $100,000 or whatever would be the 100,000. It doesn't mean that that is the value of it, but that is what the face value or notional value. So if you don't like notional, face could be another terminology used.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I think we leave notional value as is. I think it's pretty well understood in the industry, I think.
Well, I don't, is it? And is it, that's what I want to know, because I don't want a lawsuit over the definition of notional value. Why wouldn't we define it?
Mr. Chairman, in my experience, there are only two stable coins and I think that is a notional value appears anytime we're talking about the USD token. I think on any white paper I've ever seen, if you log into Coinbase, just in a brief explanation of those of Tether and that coin, it would appear there as well. So I would agree with Representative Stith. I would also, though, agree with you, Mr. Chairman, if you were to change it, based on what Patrick said, I don't think it has an impact on what it really means, but it is an industry term.
Mr. Chairman, I just wikied it for what it's worth. Face notional is face.
Face value.
If
Okay, well, just get.
can I say wiki?
Say anything you want. Okay, going back to page 6, in the, where we put the state has no fiduciary duty. That's one of the typed in note from Mike. I'm not sure that that's right location for it, but we just got to make sure we maintain that language someplace or how to word it.
So, Mr. Chairman, the reason that I'd proposed putting it on page 6 is because we talk about on line 8, we talk about creating a perpetual trust fund held on behalf of token holders. And it seems like it follows logically to say in that same paragraph that the state officials and state employees, have no fiduciary duty to token holders.
That's where I'm, well, maybe we need to reword it and say that by creation of this trust, we are not establishing a fiduciary duty to,
In favor of token holders.
in favor of the token.
Right. And I think we do need to limit it to token holders because you don't want to eliminate all fiduciary duties of everyone who works in the treasurer's office, right? Because then they can embezzle the funds and it's okay.
Okay, next one I have. So going back to down to Romanet B. Oh, no, I've got some more changes up above. So if you go to line 7 on page 6, where it says the account from any source are intended to be inviolate. So I'm gonna modify that language. Let me read it to you and see if it makes sense to you. So first of all, I don't think the word inviolate means it's actually contradictory to what we're doing, because inviolate means you can never touch it. But we have to touch this because if it's redeemed, it's no longer inviolate. So I think that's the wrong word. So what I have is the account from any source, including all funds deposited to the account from any source, and shall be held in trust to support redemption of the token, except that funds in the account shall be available to satisfy other obligations placed on the account in this section. So on line 7, I deleted are intended to be inviolate. And on line 8, I deleted it. And constitute a permanent or perpetual. I just say, so any source and shall be held in trust. And then I deleted the rest of the line. And then going to page 9, I deleted behalf of the token holders and insert to support redemption of any token. So I intentionally took out the token holders language there. Except that funds in the account shall be available to satisfy. Then I struck the financial demands of token holders and to satisfy the, and then so it reads available to satisfy other obligations placed on the account in this section. So I simplify it and just say that we're holding the money in trust to satisfy the tokens and what any expenditures that this section allows. So that helps reduce our liability, and I think I just don't think it's correct that it's inviolate and then it's a permanent and perpetual trust, because it really isn't. So thoughts on that?
Mr. Chairman, just so I want to repeat it, just so I know exactly what we are putting here.
I'll print this out and give it to
Okay.
you. So,
But can I
Go
just
ahead.
read it through? So starting on line 6, funds within the account, including all funds deposited to the account from any source, shall be held in trust, except that funds in the account
held in trust to support redemption of any token.
shall be held in trust to support redemption of any token.
Except that funds in the account shall be available to satisfy other obligations placed on the account in this section.
Got it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So any comments from the back row? This is we're freelancing here, so. I mean, you can actually come up here and sit if you want to. Lisa, if you want comments or thoughts, and just join in as we're going through this.
Come on, Lisa.
Mr. Chairman, could I get clarification on that in the sense that if the legislature or anyone else that wanted to use those funds, would you be able to do that?
No.
Okay.
The only uses are what we're going to allow in this section.
Okay. So that would be, so the purchaser of the coin knows that there's no way that any of these funds could be used for any other purpose other than the redemption or the excess would be to be. Okay, thank you.
And Mr.
Either for redemption or the excess of 102%.
Mr. Chairman, that amendment makes a lot of sense to me. The very last word of that amendment, is the phrase under this section?
That may be wrong.
So maybe under this act,
Under this act.
under this
It's
act.
probably a better one. Because I think where we put limitations are is not this section.
Mr. Chairman, can I suggest one other change?
Yes.
Instead of any token, of a Wyoming stable token, just to make
That's
it clear.
fine.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Lisa Dirty Spillman, General Counsel for the State Treasurer's Office. 2
You
points.
got to slow down
Sorry.
and bring the mic closer because
Okay.
you just sound like a. brr, brr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lisa Dirty Spillman, General Counsel for the State Treasurer's Office. With respect to the notional value, I think that's a great idea to have it defined. I think that would prevent arguments that someone would be entitled to the fund. I just did a cursory search and there are other uses of notional value in derivatives and swaps that are different for this one. So I just think we should be clear on that. That's my suggestion there. And then with respect to your changes, I think that makes sense. The changes that you just mentioned to not have the inviolate language, but have held in trust. I think those are good changes.
So, Mr. Chairman, so then is the definition of notional value shall mean face value?
Something like that, yes.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, we can also use par value as well, which is common parlance, or just the nominal face value.
Par value, the same thing as face value as notional value?
Mr. Chairman, no, because par value, when you're buying a bill, you're buying it at a discount.
Yeah.
And so the par value would be 100, but if you're buying it at a discount, it would be 97. And so if you're talking par, then you would be talking about the $100 where the bill has not yet accreted to that level. So par would not be the proper terminology. And also if you're saying par value, if you buy a bond at par, let's say 100, and the value of that bond drops below, then you're saying it's worth par where it's not because it's only worth whatever it's going to mature at par, but in between that time, it won't stay at par.
So Mike, would you just go up and stick in a definition?
Mr. Chairman, so I have a definition of Romanet 8 that quote unquote notional value means face value. That's it.
Okay. So now I'm on back of page 6, bottom of page 6. So this is talking about how we can expend the dollars. So I've got it written actually 2 different ways, but here's the gist of it is. Let me read what let's see what you got typed in. Not less than 100% the notional value. So actually, it's very similar to your typed in stuff. And I like your language. So do everyone have the typed in language? The typed in language says that not less than 100% of the notional value of all outstanding issued Wyoming stable tokens shall first be used to pay for the direct operational costs of this act and then be maintained. So mine was a little bit different. Oh, no, I just added another line. So let's go back to that. Shall first be expended to pay the operational costs. Here's what I added in, and repay all funds expended by this treasurer appropriated in this act. So but here's the question, and then I want you to think about. So I'm thinking we appropriate $250,000 or $500,000, put it in here, just to make sure we can get everything done and do it right. And that these funds would come from the investment income, so from the treasurer's office. But And by making it that large, then you should have plenty enough to get the startup and to start earning interest back relatively quickly, hopefully. And so that, but you don't pay us back, you don't pay back that 250,000 or 500,000, whatever that number is, until the account reaches 102%. And then the first distributions from the 102% go to operating costs and then to pay back the loan in essence from the investment funds. That makes sense? And then after that, then you have it split. So how's that sound, Mike?
Mr. Chairman, I understand that, but I don't have language in my head that would match what you said very
Well,
well.
I've got it typed here, so I'll show it.
Okay.
But that's what I'm putting the thought out there is I'm thinking about the best way to do this and how to make it transparent. Make sure you have enough folks to hire a consultant and to get an auditing process up and running. I mean, you're going to need some type of computer system and you're going to have to pay. I saw that one gentleman that gave us the handout, said it's $70,000 startup cost for them to get going that they're going to want. So I thought, well, whatever the heck it is, let's have it come from the investment funds dollars. But it will essentially be a loan so that the first proceeds over 102% will start to pay off their operating costs. So the question is, how long would $500,000 last or $250,000 on your operational costs? We don't know. So we ought to make the number big enough to make this thing swing. That's my plan. So I was thinking 5.
Mr. Chair, just to be clear then, so you're not saying the first earnings shall be used. It won't be as originally written.
Right. And I think if we do that, that will be a better, number one, you'll get to 102 faster. And so, which will provide a buffer if something goes wrong and if you have a run on redeeming it, and to me, it's just safer that way. But
Mr. Chairman, we want to get this bill passed, right? And so wouldn't it be simpler just to give Treasurer's Office rulemaking authority to figure out those details?
always going to do that. But we're making the guideposts.
Mr. Chairman, the only concern I would have is the timing of it and how long it would take if.
To get to 102.
Correct. And that would be at today's interest rates, it would be a couple years. So would that money outstanding as opposed to paying it off first before after would be the only question. And I don't know from our budget and so forth and how that would work.
Well, yeah, I don't know the answer to that, other than your operational costs. The more tokens issued, the more and more expensive it's going to be to operate. And so you could theoretically not have anything, not get to 102 for 5 or 6 years.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know that it is necessarily true that the more tokens, the more expensive, because you could have one operator buy $100 million worth of tokens, and it takes one employee 5 minutes, and they've done that. So it only, so yeah, I don't think it's necessarily
Let's
correlated.
imagine if you've got 5 managers and they're all doing it, and you're going to have to get an auditor, and you're going to have some type of an internal auditing system. So the bigger and faster it is, the more it's going to cost you. Just to do the supervisory component of it, to know what the heck's going on.
Mr. Chair, so I'm curious, does it really, I mean, we're not dealing with, say it's $500,000 in the picture of the fund where that money's coming from. Is there any imperative on timing to repay it?
Mr. Chairman, Representative, could we just double check with Dawn and come back to you shortly? Thank you.
I don't, I'm fine with it either way, really. But I still think we need to have enough money for you to do something. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I agree. Need to have the money, but with your new language, how does that conflict with the language we put in yesterday on page 11, where it says the treasurer is authorized to expend up to, and we at the time put in 100,000 to effectuate the act, and the funds will be repaid to the treasurer pursuant to 40-31-105.
section.
So we're accomplishing that already. We can change the 100,000 up to 500 from the investment. So do we really need to put all your new language in this subsection B? Point being, I think it's already addressed. We felt like we had that subsection B on page 6 cleaned up fairly well.
That's fine. I
Yesterday.
mean, we can go with what. So let's go on to where.
Page 7.
Page 7, at the bottom of page 7, I added as determined by the treasurer and state auditor and as provided by rule and regulation.
923.
Because what was taken out of here, it was having the state auditor have an auditing role, and I want to put that back.
Can you repeat that?
Line 23.
Is that under 40-31? Are you on page 7?
Yeah, well, this is 40-31-106.
Yeah. Okay. You want to reinsert the language for the auditor?
Well, I don't know what the language for the auditor was. I just have as determined by the treasurer and auditor and as provided by rule and regulation. And somewhere I want to add in that the auditor, will conduct regular audits to be determined, but as necessary to be determined by the auditor. And so, Matt and Lisa, you can kind of put together what would be reasonable. And she's going to have theoretically someone get in contact with the managers so to see what they're doing. And so we know that that's transparent. And she should also, I think we should also give her the authority to make recommendations on if and when an independent audit should be performed, like just some type of an outside audit. I think that handout said it's anywhere between $7,000 to $15,000. And so, but it makes sense to me that the auditor makes that call, because now we have an arm's length person who's making that determination.
So,
I
Mr.
don't
Chair,
know where is the best place to put that in here. I haven't gotten that far.
so Mr. Chairman, if you want to have an audit conducted, then should it say conducted by the Department of Audit rather than the state auditor? Because the state auditor doesn't really do audits, right?
Yeah, that's fine. That's better language. And she's not necessarily auditing. She's reviewing.
But you do, Mr. Chairman, I think also have her on the,
She's
Committee.
on the committee.
yeah, so maybe I think Representative Stith's point, if you're, I don't know, if it's truly an independent audit, then you probably wouldn't want her office to perform it if she's on the committee.
True, but she can make a recommend. In fact, my guess is they don't have the expertise to conduct.
They're probably going to contract it out, as you pointed out, for $20,000.
So she can just say, okay, we need this audited, we need this audited.
Mhm,
And that's what her function is. And that's one of the purposes she's on this committee.
mhm.
Just say, slow down. Let's keep up with everybody. Make sure we're in lockstep. Okay? Okay, page 8. So I struck the last part of line 9, 10. Beyond the value of the Wyoming stable token. I just put principal deposit is not guaranteed by the state, period. That's not what we're doing.
So, Mr. Chairman, you're saying you're deleting the phrase beyond the value of the Wyoming stable token account?
Right.
Okay.
Is that too much? That's my question.
I thought you were guaranteeing it. I thought that when you bought that, it was backed by the value of the dollar, which is that not a guarantee?
Well, for example, if T-bills go negative, that means that the value of the token is the face value. That means we're going to owe them 2 cents or 3 cents on a dollar.
Mr. Chairman, but the value of the account itself would still be under $1 per token. So we still wouldn't be guaranteeing more than what's in the account.
Wouldn't be the value of the T-bill, but just dollar for dollar. And you're guaranteeing that amount, aren't you?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, I believe we're guaranteeing what's in the account.
Okay, yeah, I guess you're, I'm, second thought, I don't need to do it. I like it though. All right, page 9.
Patrick, you were looking at us. We got this wrong.
No, Mr. Chairman, Representative, we would not be guaranteeing it. And I can't comment, and Matt can comment on your earlier part as well. One question that I have, whether you pay it out before or after, is on page 7, line 20. So this is the part, in no case shall the redemption result in the state paying a higher amount than the total assets divided by the number of outstanding shares. So in that instance, if there was a negative rate, for instance, you would pay out whatever the value of the fund is. But in that instance, I would rather have those expenses paid off first instead of above, because we would then take that money out and then still have to make up that difference.
Well, and that was my question, is the way, when you say that, how do you make sure all your expenses are paid first? So to me, it's the higher of the total assets divided by the number of outstanding. It's really,
After all
it's the total
expenses.
costs.
Exactly. After all expenses are paid.
So you're inserting just after all expenses are paid, essentially.
Just simply, we could deduct the costs and then issue the redemption from that.
Well, but in this paragraph,
Mr. Chairman, yes. So I would just add after all expenses paid at the end of line 10, and I think that should cover it. If that's correct.
Mr. Chairman, line 10 on what page?
Page 8.
actually what you do is you put total assets and costs, right? And outstanding costs. That way it's not a negative. Divided by the number of outstanding Wyoming state takings. Does that make more sense than having them? I don't know, we just need to make sure it's worded in there.
I'll work with you on it, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Back to 9.
Mr. Chairman, I did talk to Deputy Williams. She said we could float the 500,000 within our 600 series, but I think as Patrick said, and we were just kind of discussing that getting rid of that expense up front might make sense. She said we could float it within our 600.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
May I make a comment just in terms of where that language limiting the amount of redemption after costs have been incurred? I think it should be in the redemption section. I think there could be an argument that there could be a conflict between that section and the following section. So it should limit the right there in that section. So perhaps
This page.
at the bottom of page 7, the language that you said could just finish it, and after all expenses have been paid.
Yeah, that's where I put it. That the total assets and outstanding costs and obligations divided by. So on page, I added a subparagraph on liabilities. This is page 9. So let me just read it. The state shall be entitled to collect attorney's fees and costs for any party who brings an unsuccessful action seeking funds or damages in excess of the notional value of the total. The state shall be entitled to collect attorney's fees and costs from any party who brings an unsuccessful action seeking funds or damages in excess of the notional value of the total. So the other thing, did we limit the jurisdiction to Wyoming?
Yeah.
I think we need to do so.
I apologize, Mr. Chairman, I didn't hear your question.
So at the end, any actions brought against the state
Mhm.
must be brought in the Chancery Court of the state of Wyoming.
We were just talking about that. Thank you.
Okay, so Mike, you got that? At the end, it's a subsection at the end.
4031, page 8. With liability section.
Yeah.
After you get done saying they have its expenses. Then you say you brought, yes.
So what that means in any contract that you guys enter into for the operations and your managers, that phrase needs to be in your contract. That won't mean anything.
You're welcome.
Doesn't follow up. I think that's all I got.
Question on the amendment.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Those opposed?
Are you sure,
Motion
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
carries. Go ahead.
I think your amendments provide a very strong oversight to reduce the risk to the state, and I think that they are well received.
Yeah. So what we'll do is, once you have it in draft form and you might want to get with LSO and do it, then I'll review it with you, but it's passed out of this committee, so it can go to the floor on Monday. Okay?
Do we need an appropriation?
Yeah, 600,000, right?
Did we need to make that change
Yep,
on page?
reopen. And
On page 11,
does it still say special revenue?
we set up to 100,000. Let's change that up to
600,000.
$600,000 on page 11 from our amendment yesterday, special revenue. With the same language.
So do we need to find the special revenue? Does it matter to you guys, or you know what your office needs? Matt?
It's in their office. Right.
I guess the question is it an appropriation or authorization of use of our special revenues?
Authorization.
Okay, authorization sounds better.
Is authorized
Everyone can-
to expend,
And that's what we said.
which was kind of the language that we had given was an authorization to expand up to 600,000 of our, use that one, perfect.
Okay, as amended, all those in favor say aye. Roll call?
Roll call.
Mr. Chairman, I was just gonna ask with, you know, how procedurally you thought. I know we don't really do substitute bills. It's not our preference, but it's pretty substantive for the body to be able to see everything in front of it all at once. Is that,
The only problem with substitute bills are if LSO has the time to do it. But if they can put it together, they can have the weekend. It'd be great to have. a substitute bill.
well, we have until Tuesday to,
Yeah.
but I can get with them and figure it out, I suppose.
I think the intention was you were going to present.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I will hand track the amendments and I'll send it to the body.
Thank you, Representative Young.
It'd be nice to have a clean bill if we could do it.
Yes.
I think it will help. I think it will help the body. I think they'll have more comfort with all this governance that you've added,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman. I think it'll be helpful.
You work with LSO on that.
I will.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tell them that we would like it if it's possible.
I will tell them Chairman Nicholas would like it if.
That's right. Come talk to me. Okay. Anything else for the good? Oh, roll call, yeah.
All right, to be clear, when I turn this in this afternoon, the only thing I put under amendments says get with Representative Yin, and he has them all.
Yep.
I am not doing any of that. I want to be clear. Okay, and it will be a substitute bill. Okay. Whew. Representative Kinner,
Aye.
Representative Larson. Representative Schwartz. Representative Simpson.
Aye.
Representative Stith.
Aye.
Representative Walters. Chairman Nicholas.
Hi.
So it's a do pass as amended.
All right, thank you for my indulgence.